Lad, you know what's even better than talking about hockey with Chase?
Tell me.
It's probably conquering the Russian Empire.
Oh my God, are you still playing that game right now?
I'm playing this game called Call of War with my best friend Cameron Lake, and right now we are invading.
Wait a second.
Carey Price is not your best friend?
No,
I wish he was.
that's not who
Really?
I was gonna say, Daniel. Okay.
Oh, okay, sorry. What were you going to
I
say?
thought you were gonna be on my side here, and that we're not his best friends. Okay, how about that?
Okay, sorry, yeah. Actually,
Okay.
I hid my disappointment with the Carey Price answer.
That's it. Felt like you were really excited to hear you want best friend. I think I have to question the relationship between the three co-hosts here on this show. But then, yeah, Chase was a great guest. Hey, let's just mention that right off the bat here in the show. We thank him here. He was very generous of his time, and we hope we can have him back in the future.
Yes.
Yeah, we love you. You're a good guy. But now it's time for the retro review. Alex, why don't you take it from here? Because this is, I want to say heartbreaking, but at the same time, I'm sure there's some solace in looking at what happened post the 2014
Yeah, there's a couple things with this retro review. Like, it brings back absolute nightmares for any Leaf fan. I don't know why I agreed to do this. It's only because it was the only person to ever ask us to do something.
Talha there.
So he originally asked me to say, you know what, he sent me a message saying, man, I didn't realize how bad the 14-15 Leafs were. And then I go, yeah, they were really bad, but the 15-16 Leafs were even worse. So what I decided, instead of just focusing on 14-15, I thought, why don't we look at 14-16? Because that was really the Leafs' transitioning year. 2012, 2013 was a lockout year. 13-14 was another weird year for the Leafs. But I think 14-15, I believe that was the first year that Brendan Shanahan was there. I'll find out. And then 15-16 was the ultimate absolute tank of a year. So why don't we start with 14-15? They put in 82 games. 30 wins, 44 losses, 8 overtime losses.
Well, that's bad.
68 for a total of 68 points. Their leading scorer was Phil Kessel, 25 goals, 36 assists for 61 points. Their leading goal scorer, James Van Riemsdyk, 27 goals, 29 assists, and 56 points.
I always he was a Leaf, by the way.
Who?
James Van Riemsdyk. I just forget he was a thing.
What do you mean?
It was a sad day when he became a Leaf, though.
Yeah, because we had to give up Luke Shed. Oh, no. Oh, no.
You look back on it, right? Like 14-15, I didn't care about the Leafs. Carey Price is putting on a damn show in Montreal. So,
yeah.
I don't remember. Like, I remember Phil, but then JVR. Then in his the year that you drafted Matthews, he was hurt all year, and then he just went back to Philly. And I just never really think of JVR as a Leaf.
To be honest, the 14-15 Leafs, it was a weird year because I have the regular season up. In October, they went 5-4-1. November, they went 7-4-2. And in December, they went 9-6-0, right? So it seems like, this is going to be, I don't know, interesting.
Be something there.
It could be potentially a weird playoff team. I don't know if they'd actually make the playoffs. And then the best thing happened. Should I tell you what happened?
Go ahead.
In January of 2015, the Leafs went 11-1-1. 11. Let me repeat it. 11 wins. I wish. 1 win, 11 losses, and 1 overtime loss.
I remember that. That was so bad.
Okay.
That's when
I lost myself. That's incredible.
That's when we finally
garbage.
That's when we finally knew 2013 was a fluke.
Yeah. It's funny because I remember when Brian Burke was fired, there was a mix of, oh man, Brian Burke was building something. I think he was fired just in the middle of the 2012-2013 season, or not middle, sorry, just before the season actually started, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
that was when the rumors that Luongo was coming to the Leafs.
Yes, I remember that.
That was a thing?
Yeah. He talked about, Brian Burke talked about it recently. Now, they were trying to bring Luongo in, and I think, who are they asking for?
I can't remember.
The name's not coming to me. Adam, do you mind searching it up?
Yeah. What exactly?
Just search up Brian Burke Luongo to Toronto. Something should come up.
Yeah. All right.
And that month, January 2015, Randy Carlyle was the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and then he was fired. Do you know who came in to replace him? The man, the myth, the bloody legend, Peter Horachek.
He always seemed like a nice guy in interviews.
This is from Fansided. This is by Paul Taylor.
Okay.
Quote, as reported by Sportsnet, the Leafs apparently almost acquired Roberto Luongo while Burke was the Leafs president and GM. However, Burke was fired in January 2013 before he had a chance to make the deal. The leads to a number of questions, as in, the potential trade. Just skipping forward here. The first thing to consider is what the Leafs would have to given up in exchange for acquiring Luongo. According to Burke.
Yeah.
So the man who was right in the thick of it, pretty credible source, to be honest with you.
I think so.
The Vancouver Canucks were asking for Jake Gardiner, Nazem Kadri, and 2 first-round for Roberto Luongo.
And that was in 2012 or 2013, I guess. I don't. Would you take that deal? If I'm Brian Burke, can I be honest? If I'm Brian Burke, I don't take that deal.
No.
Luongo's like 33 at that point.
Well, even if he's in his, it's weird with Luongo. You already gave up. Imagine this. You gave up 2 first-round picks in what year? What year did you get Phil Kessel?
2009?
The next 2 picks that you got, the 2 first-round picks you gave up turned into Tyler Seguin and Dougie Hamilton. Imagine giving up 2 more first-round picks and it turning to garbage again. You know how bad that will look?
Imagine giving up Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews.
Oh, my God. I can't imagine that. Like, I'd be on the floor crying. I wouldn't be a Leafs fan. I'd probably be – I don't even know. There's probably a chance if that happened, I would be a Montreal fan. I don't even know how I would do it. I'd somehow find my way.
Find a way.
The biggest thing I think that happened in 14-15 and really set the future for this team was Kyle Dubas it was his first year as assistant general manager. And I believe him and Mark Hunter were in charge of that draft. And recently there was Sportsnet was doing one of those Instagram live TV videos. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
It was Dubas, Brisebois, Bill Guerin, and John Chaika. And they were talking about going to their first GM meetings. And Kyle Dubas said he went when Nonis was fired. I think Nonis was fired this year because Lamoriello would be hired that summer. And he was scared. I'm not going to say the word. He was extremely scared to go into a meeting. Like, imagine being like, at that time, I think he's still in his 30s at that point, and going into a room with pretty much the 200 hockey men.
When you're Mr. Hey,
I'm about to change the game, and and you're just sitting there with the eye test. His girlfriend is a 6. We can't draft him, right?
One of the most accurate sports quotes.
That's so. I hate that. I hate that quote.
The biggest trade of the 2014-15 year is a deal that brought in Zach Hyman. On June 19, 2015, so this was at the end of the year, the Florida Panthers traded Zach Hyman in a conditional 7 for Greg McKegg.
And
Steal.
Guy, Zach Hyman.
And
That was such a steal. I remember hearing about that trade. Okay, funny thing in my life at that time, I actually was living in Hong Kong.
Okay.
So yeah, I did this when I was taking classes there. Back at my time at U of T. Yeah, I know. I was crazy. Like I remember hearing about all these trades. Like when I was happy, like the Leafs were finally kind of embracing a rebuild. But all these deals, like I was getting these like because of the hour, like the time difference. I was getting them at night.
Yeah.
And when they first got the Zach Hyman one, where it's like a guy where, that NCAA potential, I didn't really think anything of it much. It was a guy that he does, he brings to the game what you want him to, but he did it so much better as like that grinding, digging guy on like the top lines.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that he was, at that point, your cabinet with all the prospects wasn't as full as it is, even simply a year later.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, bringing in Zach Hyman, he's one of those guys, homegrown. He needs to be developed. I think that's perfect for the start of that rebuild. So another thing with this year, and I think this is, I'm going to read you the list of players, and it screams Kyle Dubas to me, is Mitch Marner, Travis Dermott, Jeremy Bracco, Dmitry Timashov. Those were the big picks that the Leafs made in the 2015 draft. You obviously, other than those guys, have Andrew Nielsen, who ended up getting traded in the was he part of the Thomas Plekanec deal?
I will check. I think you're thinking of Kaliev.
But okay.
I think Andrew Nielsen was traded for he was traded to Calgary, I think, for Morgan Klimchuk.
Yeah, he was part of that Calgary trade. You also have Martin Zierkaus, who was actually part of the Robin Leonard to Vegas trade, that crazy 3-way trade. You have Jesper Lindgren, who I believe just signed a contract with the Marlies, and Stefan Desrochers, who never ended up signing with the Leafs, and Nikita Korostelev, who also never signed with the Leafs. So you have, but just to have those 4 players, and Timashov got claimed on waivers, but he looked like he can be somewhat of an NHLer, bottom 6 probably. Jeremy Bracco, you still don't really know what he is, probably on his way out of Toronto, but can be for a certain amount of time. He looked like he could be a decent player, and now looks to be a trade trip. But Mitch Marner and Travis Dermott, who are, I would argue Mitch Marner is obviously an extremely important part of this team, but Travis Dermott is also an important part of the Leafs' future, and this goes back to 2015, right? So I think this just automatically screams Kyle Dubas to me.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, they kind of knew where they were going with this. I'm looking back on the stats, and then we talked about Randy Carlyle, and I remember his top-heavy teams that he refused to adjust, like the Colton Orrs, the Fraser McLarens. Even towards the end of his coaching time in Toronto, you had the Corbin Holter still getting a lot of minutes.
Yeah,
he's still around.
Yeah. Oh, and David Clarkson. How could I forget about?
Well,
David
that was
Clarkson?
the year they.
Yeah.
Was that not the year they traded David Clarkson?
That was when they were like. Yeah, I remember that when they're like, he's impossible. You cannot trade him. And they were able to find a way.
They traded him to Columbus for Nathan Horton simply because David Clarkson's contract was insured while Nathan Horton's contract was not insured.
Yes. And yeah, that was insane when like they thought, Clarkson was still able to play at that time, but
did they not? Sorry, did they not just sign David Clarkson to a contract?
He had this was his second year with the Leafs.
Oh my god.
The second coming of Wendell Clark.
Oh my god.
Was the highlight of David Clarkson's time as a Leaf is when he got suspended in preseason?
Yes.
That's when I knew I'm like, oh, this contract. I'm like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah. And earlier in June 4th of 2015, they also signed Andreas Johnsson, still a part of this team.
Solid 7th rounder.
Wait, sorry, say that again. You cut out.
June 4th, 2015, Andreas Johnsson signed with the Leafs.
Oh, okay.
So that's another guy still part of this team. So, you see, this was kind of the start of collecting and bringing in the pieces that the team really needs. You look at they did make quite a few trades that year. They brought in Zach Hyman, they got rid of Corbinian Holzer, brought in Olli Jokinen, then traded him later that month actually. Starting to get rid of the players and bringing in the draft picks. So I think this was really a good start for the team.
I agree. Like the Cody Franzen trade to Nashville, when they got a first rounder out of that, and Brendan Lepsic, I believe. Yes, Brendan, they got out of that. Yeah, for a rental guy. I was like, these are the deals that they've been needing.
It's interesting to look back and you can already see Kyle Dubas planting for the team that he's going to inherit.
Yeah, man.
I mean, and now he gives that much more depth to Lamoriello's quote of saying, if he's not the general manager when I'm gone in 2 years, then it's his fault. And you can see that right away he was planning. A lot of credit to him.
Yeah, and I think, this was really the start of the downfall. Obviously the team would go on to be even worse the year after. But I think the issue with this team, and we look at a team like Minnesota, we look at a team like even someone, I don't want to use them as a comparable, but I think someone like Arizona, who's what the hell? What are they? What is Arizona? What is Minnesota? That's kind of the limbo they were in, but obviously they weren't as good as either teams. Like the players they had, I would argue, are not as good as the players that Minnesota have and are not as good as the players that Arizona have. So it's kind of a, what are we? Like you can hit the playoffs, but you're probably not. You're eventually going to fall off like they did this year, going 1-11-1 in January. That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. Now I got myself upset over that. So why don't we move on? Do you guys have anything else to talk about this team?
I actually so I know it was horrible to watch, but it was like that kind of thing where in the Dark Knight where it's always just before dawn kind of perspective where, you needed these growing pains to kind of realize, we did not have a team here that could compete. Stop advertising it that Phil Kessel is our franchise guy. It's you have to get out of that mentality and go, we got to restart.
Of course. And that's why looking back now, it's frustrating for a team to go 1-11-1 in a month and think, man, that is awful. And I don't like remembering it, but if that didn't happen, I think about the players we wouldn't have. So
yeah,
I don't mind that. I don't mind having to relive it. But let's move on to 2015-16 because I think that this was probably an even bigger year than the 14-15 year. There was a lot more going on. Let's just start with, obviously, this is the tank year. It was the year for Austin Matthews or Patrick Laine at the beginning of the year, obviously. By the end of the year, everyone knew it was Austin Matthews. It was Babcock's first year after signing an 8-year contract with the team. Lou Lamoriello was brought in for 3 years, a 3-year contract, I believe. And do you know who was captain?
Dion Phaneuf.
From October to February, good old Dion Phaneuf.
Was that what
Apparently, his possession numbers apparently improved. It improved under Mike Babcock. I remember they commented on that at the beginning of the season where he was better in transition and helping with helping with the offensive rushes.
Yeah. Are you just trying to make me feel trying to make me feel better? Is that what's going on?
I think at that point, when I look back on, I thought like it's another deal. Like they did the impossible to Clarkson, and then they did the impossible with getting rid of Phaneuf.
They got rid of Phaneuf without retaining salary.
Yes,
that's incredible.
And then didn't the Sens have to retain?
Yeah.
Him? And he was like their highest paid or one of their highest paid defensemen. Wasn't even playing on a team.
Yeah.
Man, that is. Is that what the year Zaitsev was? That Zaitsev's rookie year?
What? No. He came in. He was his first year was 16-17. He
was always a playoff guy.
Daniel, what are you saying? What are you talking? What are you trying to do?
Zaitsev, Mr. Game 7. Who's Justin Williams?
Stop it.
Big thing like when I looked on the 2016 season was, I guess, like what we talked about were the moves that were happening in the summer. Like I told you, like when I was in Hong Kong, I was getting updates like crazy about, okay, where's Phil Kessel going? He went in that huge Pittsburgh deal, got back Kasperi Kapanen.
Yeah.
And we've talked a lot about that, where like that kind of was, that was a statement move where they're like, all right, we're going to rebuild now and we're going to keep accumulating these assets. But I think one move that in particular, it was happening, I think, towards training camp was when they kind of realized too, even with the Marlies, they didn't have any prospects that would hypothetically be like their guy or someone that could actually make an impact on the Leafs. So, remember that trade? They traded like 5 prospects for Michael Grabner.
Yes. So for me, I actually have I have 5 trades that I thought were pretty big impact. And this was also William Nylander's first year I believe it was his first year in the AHL and would eventually be called up for a couple games in the NHL.
Yeah, I actually got to see him and Kasperi Kapanen. They debuted on the same night. I got to go to that game. It was pretty
against Tampa Bay, was it not?
Yeah, I went.
I was there too.
Yeah. Oh wow. We were in the same game and we didn't know each other.
Exactly.
I remember that everyone was just cheering "Let's go Marlies" during that game.
Really? I don't remember that. Maybe it was I don't remember. But let's start with the biggest trade of them all. It's June 27, 2015. Lou Lamoriello calls Peter Chiarelli, I believe. 2015 was Peter Chiarelli, GM of the Oilers.
I'll check.
Yeah.
Calls Peter Chiarelli. He goes, I want Martin Marincin. And I'll do whatever I can. He trades Brad Ross and a 2015 4th-round pick.
Wait, Brad Ross?
Yes.
Is that the same Brad Ross in the Isle who says like a 5-year $1 million deal?
What?
Hold on. Okay, sorry. Yeah, go.
You
go
mean
ahead.
Ross Johnston? You're thinking about Ross Johnston, I think.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Talk about how the second coming came to Toronto in the form of Martin Marincin.
Exact. Martin Marincin came to Toronto in this year. Biggest trade of the year.
Always remember that one.
Always remember. No, that's stop. I know Adam wants me to talk about it, but I'm not going to talk about it.
Marty.
Let's start with the big one, Phil Kessel. Phil, we're in a time that the Leafs really are heading for that big tank that, we've all been expecting. And one of the guys you got to get rid of, Phil Kessel. So where does he go? Pittsburgh Penguins. So the Toronto Maple Leafs trade Phil Kessel, Tim Erickson, Tyler Biggs, just repeating it again,
center pick,
and a conditional second. So either it says conditional Pittsburgh's 2nd-round pick in 2016 or Toronto's 2nd-round pick in 2017 for Nick Spalling, Kasperi Kapanen, Scott Harrington, and what would turn out to be a first-round pick in 2016. That pick would be traded later. That's not a bad deal for Phil Kessel. And I think you look at it, you didn't know what – it didn't really seem like people knew what Kasperi Kapanen was going to turn into because, he was a goal scorer, but he was lacking in things. And it turns out that he really improved. Like the Marlies really did develop him into a player that, can play in your top six if he has to, but is a very good third line player.
Mm-hmm.
That first ended up turning into, Sam Steele. That pick though would be traded to the Anaheim Ducks for Frederik Andersen, which I think is absolutely huge for this team because he really was that goalie for 5 years. He was essentially our franchise goalie for 5 years. Scott Harrington and Nick Spalling. I think Scott Harrington is now in Columbus.
Yes.
Nick Spalling is not playing anymore. Last played in Switzerland. So that
he was used to get more draft picks. Yeah.
Again, he was used to get more draft picks. That's I think that that phrase is the best thing to describe this team. He was used to get more draft picks.
Yeah.
Like you think about what they did, they're looking to trade Michael Grabner. I don't think they ended up being able to because he ended up getting injured. And that kind of leads me to the next one. The Michael Grabner trade, that was just like, what the hell is this? Pretty much all guys we didn't really know what they were going to be. They were this, they were that. From the Islanders, the Leafs got Michael Grabner. The Leafs sent Taylor Beck, Carter Verhaeghe, who ended up playing with the Tampa Bay Lightning this year, scored a hat trick. Matt Finn, Tom Nilsson, and Chris Gibson, who I believe is still with the Islanders in the AHL. So that's an interesting one for the team.
Yeah. Before we move on, I like looking at those two deals. I think what I think about is damage control in a way, because with that Phil Kessel deal, you get rid of a guy that, that's a culture shift. But also with Tyler Biggs, it's you get rid of one of the most disappointing prospects the Leafs have ever had. This guy's never made it to the NHL, and Brian Burke traded up in that draft to get him. They traded John Gibson and Rickard Rakell for Tyler Biggs.
Imagine
no, they didn't.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Yes, they did. They traded a first and a second to move up in the draft to draft Tyler Biggs.
Because, Rakell was 30th and then Gibson was 39th.
First of all, good draft for the Ducks there. That's a mix. And, oh boy. By the way, that Grabner trade feels like your prototypical NHL 20 trade. Where
yes.
You're throwing a bunch of value and trying to get a good player.
Yeah.
I remember that Matt Finn. I was so excited about him for 2012. He went 35th, and I don't know. He fell apart right when he got to the Marlies. I really was hoping that guy would turn out to be something. I remember, that 2012 draft I talked about. It was a weird draft. That guy was ranked 20th, and then when he dropped to 35th, they're like, the Leafs got a steal here. They got Morgan Riley at 5th. Now they have Matt Finn at 35th. There's their future.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The next trade, the second last trade, probably a big trade for a lot of people. The Dion Phaneuf trade. He's your captain. That's pretty much all I have
just
to
throwing
say.
money around that trade.
Yeah,
Milan Mahalik.
Yeah, so the Leafs ended up trading Dion Phaneuf, Matt Fratton, Casey Bailey, Ryan Rupert, and Cody Donaghy. Really, I guess, prospect. I know Casey Bailey and Cody Donaghy, I think, signed the year before. I guess didn't really turn out what people expected them to be. Matt Fratton was, that kind of guy, that roster player that a lot of people I remember Matt Friend, but it's Matt Friend.
I already was considered the top one of the top prospects for the Leafs.
This team, and in return, the Leafs got Jared Cohen, and I don't think he ever played a game for the team.
No.
There was a contract dispute. Milan Mihalik, how you say it, Dan? Mihalik, close enough. Milan Mihalik. Colin Greening, Tobias Lindbergh, and a second-round pick in 2017. Honestly, I don't need like that deal's like great. We just got rid of Dion. I love Dion. I bet Dion's a fantastic person.
You got rid of the Dion Phaneuf contract.
Right. I can imagine he's a great person. You know, he was here earlier in the year. He was with Brendan Shanahan. I can imagine that they're maybe thinking, you know, now that he's pretty much all but retired, if he wants to move into some type of management role, why not come back to Toronto? Like, I wouldn't mind it. It really wouldn't bother me at all. I can imagine there are people who would be bothered by it because, you know, that's how people are.
Yeah. If we're taking a stopgap with Dion quickly, to talk about how good of a person he actually is, I think he had his 1,000th game. I can't remember who it was when he was a King, right? And Erik Karlsson, of course, who he played with in Ottawa, got him like a specialized, this really cool like stick, and it had like the amount of games he played as a Leaf, as a Sen, and as a King. Really sweet gesture. Like, you hear nothing but great things about Dion Phaneuf. Really did not deserve the amount of crap he got here, but you can say that.
I think like he was consistent.
Consistently bad. Daniel, don't mix it.
I think it's just when he made the mistakes, they were just really bad in the moment that people remember.
It's like Jeff Merrick said, there's always that one defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's the thing with me is that I can imagine he's a really good person. I hate crapping on really good people. I really do.
But you're about to.
But it's Dion. Okay, you tell me if Dion Phaneuf was on your team and did that, you're telling me you wouldn't crap on him?
When I first got him, I remember I was excited. I'm like, hey, he's going to reignite like that 64-point season.
Stop it. You're thinking of Dion back. You're thinking of double Dion. You're thinking of Dion breaking 2 glasses of pain in a single period.
I thought that's what the Leafs got, to be honest.
Okay.
I was so young at the time. I didn't know. I was naive.
How old were you when the trade happened?
What year was it?
That was 2009.
I was 9 years old. I remember it happening, and I thought someone was joking, but I also didn't know who Dion Phaneuf was. So,
but you know, they got Jean-Sébastien Giguère, you know, same day. So,
yeah. Yay!
I was blinded.
Daniel was just way too excited because they just got Jean-Sébastien Giguère. That's why.
Also, I trusted for that stretch. You know, like he just won a cup 2 years before.
Yeah.
So like, okay, you know, he'll do something.
The biggest trade of them all, the James Reimer trade.
Oh,
it must have been
sad.
the saddest day in Leafs history.
Not one of the multiple Game 7 losses?
No, stop it. Don't bring it up.
Because it was so like it was like, oh yeah, we just traded him. It was nothing like, oh yeah, you know, like it's just he's traded, and that was kind of sad because he wanted to be a Leaf.
We all expected it though. I think a lot of people did expect it.
But the package they got for it, I'm like, I don't know.
Hold on, because before you do that, are you guys going to include just the Reimer deal, or are you going to include the assets they got back from Polak? Because those were like
I can do both of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
just why, because I think like it looks a lot more fair when you put both the deals together.
Okay.
Yeah, so the thing with this deal is I remember now the numbers not coming to me, but he wanted a contract that didn't make sense for the Leafs. Because you didn't know at the time, you know, what are we going to have? We didn't really have a goalie for the future at that time. The Anderson trade wouldn't have happened until that summer. So it didn't make sense to bring back James Reimer on a deal. The number is not coming back to me, but it was similar to what he ended up getting with Florida.
Yeah, I would say no to that.
Right. So I would say no to that as well. So considering that he was a expiring asset, his contract was expiring, I don't mind the steal. So it was obviously to the San Jose Sharks, the original deal, James Reimer and Jeremy Morin to San Jose, Alex Stalock, Ben Smith, and a conditional fourth. And then, 5 days before that, they sent Roman Polak and Nick Spaulding for Rafi Torres and 2 second-round picks. So I think in total, I don't mind the deal at all. Really, Roman Polak, I believe, was expiring as well. He would end up returning to the Leafs. James Reimer was expiring. Nick Spaulding and Jeremy Morin, I don't think many people thought much of them as prospects or real top-end NHL-type players. So I think for the return that they got, it made sense for the time.
Fair enough.
The biggest deal going into that summer was the Anderson deal. You trade a first-round pick, which, yes, it was Pittsburgh's. They won the Cup that year, so it turned out to be Sam Steele at 30th overall. And the second-round pick the year after, I believe it turned out to be Maxime Comtois for Frederik Andersen, and you sign him to a 5-year, $5 million extension. I don't see that as a bad deal for either team. I think, Sam Steele's still young, Maxime Comtois still young. I really like the deal for both sides, considering goalie was the one position going into that year that the Leafs really didn't have solved.
And they don't make the playoffs without Frederik Andersen.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. The big extensions that happened that summer, Morgan Rielly and Nazem Kadri. Morgan Rielly signs a 6-year extension, $30 million. Kadri signs a 6-year extension at $27 million. And again, great deals.
Cheeky deals.
Great deals. Jonathan Bernier. When did they trade Jonathan Bernier?
He included with the Anderson trade in a way where the Ducks waited to take up his contract because they didn't want to pay him a bonus.
Yes.
So the Leafs were forced to pay his signing bonus, and then they traded him to the Ducks for future considerations.
It was I have it here. So the Bernier was traded by the Maple Leafs to the Ducks in exchange for a conditional pick in the 2017 NHL draft. The conditions were not met.
They were crazy conditions. They were like the Ducks win the Cup and Bernier plays like half of the games.
They were
in the playoffs.
They were picks that were conditions that were never going to happen.
Yeah.
Another big thing that happened this year, Nikita Zaitsev signs with the Leafs 1-year entry-level contract. A year later, he would get 7 years for $4.5 million because no one knows why. But I think this was probably a really big draft for the team. Obviously bringing in the big players here are Austin Matthews, Igor Korshkov, Carl Grundstrom, Joseph Woll, and Adam Brooks. So far, 4 of those players have played in the NHL.
That's great. I remember. Sorry, go ahead.
The only guy who hasn't played yet was Joseph Woll.
My boy.
But I think he's going to be a Leafs goalie to look out for.
Yeah,
I really like I remember that trade where I just remember that draft for Austin Matthews, the obvious pick, and then for so long everyone talked about Korshakov, where it's do you really take this guy 31st? He was a bit of an overager, and the amount of players you kind of left on the table there.
And DeBrincat went a couple picks later.
Carter Hart,
right?
Tyler Radish.
People need to shut up about the DeBrincat thing, by the way. That gets so out of proportion. The ones who traded that pick, and every other team passed on them once. Leafs fans need to chill about DeBrincat, all right?
It's okay, you guys got Cole Caulfield now.
Who said Leaf fan? What are Leaf fans saying? Leaf fans.
They always go on about that damn DeBrincat trade. They always do. Second round is such an annoying, anytime to look at the draft. It's how was Shea Weber, Subban, Yossi?
Yeah.
Keith, how are they second rounders? Shut up. Shut
Well,
up.
Sebastian Aho was taken in the second round. I believe
35th.
he was taken a pick after Travis Dermott.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about that.
I miss him.
Habs great, stuff.
0 games.
Just like Leafs great,
points.
Robin Leonard.
Have great Doug Gilmour. His best thing
That's
was
not
breaking
funny.
the penalty box.
That's not funny.
Okay, it's not fun. Listen, the amount of times you do it, I can make this joke.
No.
Have great Colby Armstrong.
You can take Colby
Hal
Armstrong. That's
Gill,
okay.
Habs best.
I don't mind.
I miss
You can
Hal
take
Gill.
you can take Hal Gill.
Here, Alexander Parenteau.
Well, he what? Yeah, you can take him. He was only with the Leafs for a year.
They hated him.
And he was their second leading scorer when he was on the Leafs.
Yeah, so I guess if we're looking back at these two teams, it has to be one of like two of the weirdest years for the Leafs, in my opinion. You know, they were in that transition phase to really becoming garbage. Well, the first year, the second year they were absolute garbage, and then who knew like going into the next year and in 16-17, I don't think my expectations were playoffs at all.
No.
I'm like, man, just lose one more year and then you get that another high-end draft pick, hopefully a defenseman, and then you're kind of set. But no. They did get a defenseman, just hasn't turned out to be what everyone thought he was. And he still could be. It's just as of right now. I don't want to crap on Timothy Liljegren.
It's slowed down. Yeah, the hype has slowed down.
This is Timothy.
Considerably.
Yeah, Timothy
Liljegren,
Liljegren.
right?
Yeah, I don't want to crap on Timothy Liljegren. I really think he can be a good defenseman in the NHL.
Expectations. What are you going to do?
It happens. I know that just one example was when the Ducks had Lucas Biza, and he was considered part of their defensive core, and he was a bit of like older guy than like guys that were already making it so quickly, like Cam Fowler or Hampus Lindholm. I think that was kind of something where that kind of people kind of felt mentally that affected his development.
Right.
And now I think of like Liljegren and Sandin.
Yeah, and anybody you think that's going to mess up Liljegren? That Sandin is already NHL playing, probably a regular next year.
I think the comparison might be in his mind where a younger guy, he's already getting the minutes.
I think Liljegren's going to be an NHL player next year too. I number one, because I just don't think the Leafs have another option.
No.
Because right now you look at their right side, it's really Justin Hall, Timothy Liljegren, and that's pretty much it.
Martin Marincin.
Martin Marincin. You look at the prospects that they do have. You look at someone like Joseph Dudzak, who did played in the East Coast this year. Mac Hollowell split time between the East Coast and the AHL. Those are two guys who could eventually play on the right side, but right now I don't think they're an option. Do you move Travis Dermott to the right side? I don't really know. So I think he's going to play in the NHL next year simply because there's no other option for the right side, viable option, and the cap's not moving anywhere anytime soon. So, you're kind of stuck. You're kind of stuck with not stuck in a bad way, but maybe you wanted to send Liljegren down again for a couple months and bring him back up around Christmas, or do what you did with Travis Dermott. That's an option too. I don't think that's an option for them though next year.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. What we're talking about there? Oh yes, defensive prospects. Yeah, they've done pretty well with drafts lately, I think. So they'll be okay. How about you guys?
I like Martin Marincin, but I have the Steve Dangle thing of why the hell did you sign him?
I don't see why that's an issue though. It's a no. This
depth
is the thing. It's not even that it's a depth signing. It's $750,000. Like I don't see why that's an issue. Why is it such a big issue that you signed him now rather than the summer? Like we all know he's going to be signed.
Yeah, but you're telling me there's not a scrub out there that's better than Marty Marincin? Like, you got Spezza
But-
on the league, man.
Maybe he's like a high character guy. We
understand.
don't know his locker room presence.
But he also knows the Leafs, right? Like, I just think it's ridiculous to complain about signing Martin Marincin in January. I think there's a lot of other issues with this team, and signing Martin Marincin in January is not one of them.
Well, I think the issue is just signing him, period. I mean,
But he can play. Okay, so let's say you have a defenseman who can play, who can be your seventh defenseman, who's better than Martin Marincin. What happens? You send Martin Marincin down to the AHL, and then what? He can play in the AHL. Everyone who watches the AHL knows that Martin Marincin can play in the AHL. He's not that bad. I don't think signing Martin Marincin in January is as big of a deal as everyone else says it is.
I mean, hey, it's only Martin Marincin, man. Okay.
Everyone's freaking out. Every time they bring
But
it
he's
up.
terrible.
Adam, it's a no-risk signing. Zero risk. Who are you going to bring in?
It's a two-way deal, right?
Yes.
One way.
Yeah, so all is good with the world.
I don't see why people are complaining about it. It's literally the biggest deal. When I saw that he got signed, I'm like, great. Like, I don't know. What do you want me to think about it? I wasn't thinking, damn, Kyle Dubas isn't doing his job. I think people are just trying to find things to pick on with Kyle Dubas. That's my opinion.
All right, that's fair enough. So, Martin Marincin, man, I gotta get so hot.
But no, because I'm tired of, like, literally since day one, people have been complaining about him signing Martin Marincin. Zero risk, absolutely zero. Like, what are you going to do if he doesn't play in the NHL? Because he's going to go play in the AHL?
Mm-hmm.
And what's the big deal? You signed him in freaking January.
Yeah, that's
Too
fair.
bad.
They're just trying to find things to pick on with Kyle Dubas because people don't like Kyle Dubas. That's the thing.
Well, I mean, there are things to criticize Dubas about.
Absolutely, but I don't see this is one of the things that you have to criticize Dubas about. You want to criticize Dubas about not getting an actual backup goalie? Go ahead. I'll criticize him too. Want to criticize Dubas about not getting a right-handed defenseman? I'll criticize him on that too.
I like how he got Kyle Rosen back. Yeah, that was pretty solid at the deadline.
That Calle Rosen, yeah, like man, that's fine. He can play in the AHL too.
Yeah.
He can also be your seventh defenseman. I don't see why Martin Marincin is such a big deal. Like signing him was such a big deal.
Are you okay? Are we good?
No.
I don't know. Okay, well, let's talk, because you mentioned the right side there. I don't give him as much crap for dealing with the right side as a lot of people would.
Like Mike Babcock.
Sorry? I mean,
Like Mike Babcock.
They had other issues. No, it's not that. It's. I think it's one of the issues that this team has. If you ask me, the two biggest issues with this team is, well, now not so much, was their backup goalie and was the right side, because the right side, they didn't have much, right? You know, now you have Timothy Liljegren, you have Justin Hall, and then I said it before, Mac Hollowell, Joseph Dudzak, who they signed out of college. You know what? What else? There isn't much there. They do have to. That's something they need to look at in the draft if it's available.
mm-hmm. But he made the move to go get Tyson Barrie. You can say what you want about Tyson Barrie. When they made that move at first, I hated it because I was like, crap, the Leafs just got a great player.
Yeah, you know, the thing with Tyson, for me, the Tyson Barrie deal is I look at the deal and I say, what if Mike Babcock wasn't such a stubborn pain in the ass and actually used Tyson Barrie the way that he was supposed to be used in the first place?
Then his confidence doesn't get shot. Maybe he turns into the player he should have been, and then the Leafs have a more difficult choice between him and Muzzin. I don't know. Maybe that's what it looks like. But
we're not allowed, Adam. We're not allowed to say things like this, okay?
What do you mean?
Because the 200 hockey men will shut this podcast down. Okay? Be very careful in the choice of words you use. We will be shut down.
Corsi.
Oh my God. Hey, be careful, Adam. We're going to get shut down because we're not allowed to be revolutionary or something.
Owen Campbell.
Oh, God.
Gary Bettman.
No. Hey.
Everyone goes.
Don't put Gary Bettman. Don't throw Gary Bettman in this, okay?
He's not banned from the show, by the way.
No. No, there's other people banned from the show. There's a list. Chris Kreider.
Yeah, Kreider. Yeah, because he's a prick.
There's other guys. I don't even remember. Anytime we talk about it and you don't like it, you just say he's banned.
Yeah.
That's it.
Very reactionary.
I can tell.
You know what? What's your buddy's like Chase? He's not banned. Chase,
No.
whatever. I like
No.
Chase. Daniel, you're on the show, right? You're cool. You're a co-host.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not banned.
If we were the Triforce, you would be the Triforce of wisdom, I think.
No, thank you.
I don't know what the Triforce is. So.
You don't come on.
What's the Triforce?
Legend of Zelda. The 3 gold triangles. That's a Triforce. There's the Triforce of courage, power, and wisdom.
Which one are you, Adam?
I would be the Triforce of
Power. I already know he's going to give himself power.
No, because the bad guy, Ganondorf, has power.
Oh, then I'll take power. I don't mind.
You take courage because you have the courage of being a Leafs fan and continue to do it.
How does that mean?
I would just
Wait. What does that mean?
It's not easy being a Leafs fan.
That is very true.
You know, us Leafs fans have to stick together.
Don't put your you're a Ducks fan, Daniel. You're a Ducks fan.
I would have to try Force of Power because I don't know. I like chaos.
Because you're with the bad guy. That's why.
I'm not the bad guy. What are you
You
talking
just told me the guy, the Triforce of Power, is the bad guy or whatever.
about? I just think Ganondorf just wants the world, the world like Jeff Merritt.
Whoa.
Okay.
Well, he's more like just chaos in the game. I'm more like, there's nothing better than, when Carlson got traded and Twitter was just like, holy crap. I love the moments of just, holy crap, everything is on fire. I
remember when Carlson got traded.
We were in Sally's class.
We had just left actually because
Yes.
I went back to my res and called my buddy who's a Sharks fan. Said, Ethan, you just got Carlson. He wouldn't believe me. He had to go on and be like, because it was so.
Can they believe it this year?
I don't think he was a Sharks fan this year. I think he was.
What Sharks fan? Not me.
I think he started playing a lot more golf this year.
Oh,
okay.
Just like the San Jose Sharks will be. Oh.
Man, Prime Carlson was so good though. Like head and shoulders, like was the best defenseman in this league without a call. He was so good, and then he carried this. This is the Sens' fault because he had to carry them on one leg in the playoffs, and Buddy got in front of a Chris Kunitz shot, went in the peng. Oh, it's all Ottawa's fault.
Imagine if Thomas Chabot and Erik Karlsson actually played together when Thomas Chabot was what he is now.
You don't have the puck. You don't get the puck.
Oh, good Lord.
Okay. Where are we in this Leafs talk, by the way?
We're done. No, I finished a while ago.
All right. So what we're just talking
Great details. I love it.
Mm-hmm. So what did you do, Lee? Opportunity. Did you guys – we haven't really talked about?
What?
The Quarantine Cup.
Oh, my God.
And how Keith Blackburn
Steve Dangle.
And the Toasties got murdered.
Honestly, can I be honest? Most of the time, I was playing my Xbox. I wasn't even actually watching the game. I was watching it because they were hilarious.
Pete Blackburn, I was watching his stream for the first day, and man, they just kept ripping at him, and it was hilarious.
Because he wasn't good.
He was not.
Sorry.
He was so bad that he became the coach afterwards.
Yeah, that was quite questionable.
The Toasties were. I think the Toasties only won one game, and it was when Steve was in there. Because Steve was terrible. Yeah. I haven't watched that yet because I got bored because I knew Pete was.
It was awful. They were just murdering Steve.
Daniel, do you even know what we're talking about?
No.
That's okay. Sometimes that happens. Like when you guys talk about what was it that you guys talked about a couple weeks ago? I was just sitting there absolutely clueless.
What were we talking about?
I'm not sure.
Was it Jurassic Park? No.
It might have been something Jurassic Park. I don't remember, Adam. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But either way,
Yeah.
Quarantine Cup was hilarious.
All right, I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's like 5 hours.
Django's YouTube channel, Pete Blackburn's Twitch. Spoiler alert:
Spoiler alert.
Pete lost.
Oh,
lost.
smack. Lost is an understatement.
Yeah, Mike Johnson, Tic Tac Tomar, James Myrtle, all just Ian Tulloch, I think, was there.
Mike Stevens.
Yeah. We should make our own team.
Well, if Daniel had Xbox.
Yeah, Daniel.
I didn't get the memo.
I've been playing.
You guys just said NHL 20, and then I'm like, okay.
Oh, yeah. Excuses.
How long have you had that PlayStation for, Daniel?
5 years. I actually got it for Metal Gear Solid 5.
That's a disappointment.
Okay, before we end the episode, let me find my tweet. Where is it? Okay, so Daniel's going to answer this question because Adam already sent it to me. Actually, I think Daniel liked my tweet, but that's okay. Which Leafs 7-game series loss to the Bruins was most disheartening? 2013, 3-goal lead in third. 2018, 3 leads in Game 7. 2019, 3 series leads.
For me, it's going to be 2019 because the other 2 years, they were like, okay, let's see what we got. But when they got John Tavares, I was like, okay.
The answer is all of them. That's the answer.
Oh, that's the answer? I thought we were saying our opinions. Mine
No, mine, all of them.
The thing for me, like, they got Muzzin and then they got Tavares. Like, okay, they got the pieces to kind of, like, skill-wise, like, they can compete. And then they have Muzzin. It would, like, Bruins aggression. And then the fact that it was still the same result was what really frustrated me.
And then Austin Matthews played 18 minutes and 48 seconds.
Yeah.
It sounds like our next episode we should actually have some sort of news because apparently the PA and the NHL are meeting to discuss some business with returning to play. Because, of course, the NBA apparently are resuming, what is it, the beginning of June? Or something? No,
so May 1st they are opening up training facilities for a certain amount of people in them, obviously, at once.
So now that the NBA has started.
Yesterday I think it was Pierre LeBrun saying that the NHL hasn't announced anything yet, so hopefully we see something soon.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I'd be surprised if not, because it was the NBA making the first step that everyone followed in the sports world to announce.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see.
All right, were you good?
Yes.
All right. This was fun.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for listening to another episode of the 2-on-1 podcast. Make sure, if you like it, make sure to click the like button. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you are listening to wherever you're listening to, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, make sure to check out the social media links down below. Make sure to follow the Instagram page of the podcast. Follow all of us on social media for more updates on the show and to see our hilarious tweets. And that's about it. And check out Adam's YouTube page. Apparently an Andre Markov video is coming. No one knows when, though.
The general.
Right, Adam?
It's like the Habs trying to acquire star talent. There's a lot of opportunities out there, but it's difficult to do.
Oh, awesome. So we should be seeing it soon.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, see you guys on Wednesday.